Welcome everybody, and thank you for joining us for our virtual workshop. My name is Michelle Diaz, and I'm the Education Program Manager at Trees Atlanta. Um, our mission at Trees Atlanta is to protect and improve Atlanta's urban forests by planting, conservation, and education. The speaker today, it's going to be taking questions through the event. You can type the questions through the chat or through the Q&A feature. I also will be allowing you to talk, marking you like allowed to talk, but please stay muted until you like to send a question to the speaker, but you'll be able to talk as well. As we are facing this time, we're doing a lot more virtual education, and we will love your feedback. Please let us know if you have any feedback on the format that we're using, or maybe you have some ideas that you'd like to share with us, some classes that we could be teaching as well. After this class, you'll be receiving a follow-up email, and you'll have a survey. Please complete it to send us your feedback. Coming up, we are having our Tree Keeper training starting on July 25, and this is going to be from 9 a.m. to 12. Some of the classes are going to be virtual and some others are going to be outdoor. It's a 7-session training. For more information, visit treesatlanta.org/calendar, and you'll be able to register there as well. Stay tuned with us. We're offering classes. We offer education classes year-round. And visit treesatlanta.org and also follow us on social media. Our speaker today is Scott Braslow. He's a volunteer with Trees Atlanta. He's been a volunteer for many years. And this is the third workshop that he's going to be leading from his home. So thank you, Scott, so much for opening your home for us during these 3 classes. And we're looking forward to learn from you. Today, we're going to be going through the workshop, and there'll be opportunities throughout for you to ask questions.
Am I up? Thank you, Michelle. Good morning, everyone. Almost feels like afternoon. I've been up since 6 this morning. Today's workshop, virtual landscaping workshop, is about invasive plants and invasive plant identification. Anyways, I'm happy you joined me. Native or invasive species is something I'll be talking a lot about today. I'm going to be showing some examples. And I'm actually happy today we'll be doing a little interactive back and forth. Hopefully some of you, if you have some questions, you'll be able to throw them at me, and hopefully I can give you an answer that helps you in some way. Like Michelle said, I've been a volunteer for quite a long time. I actually did the Tree Keepers class in 2010, so it's been 10 years since I did that. I think, like a lot of things with Trees Atlanta, I think there's a lot of different types or things you can learn when it concerns trees. I'm actually interested in so many different things that impact our trees in our community. But anyways, not native plants, invasive plants, and some of the troublesome, or I'll call them evil plants that some of you probably have dealt with, is one reason why you're on this call today. Anyways, I'll go ahead and start. I've got some notes, so I kind of read through my notes, and in a little bit we'll look at some of the different example cuttings we've made. As much as I'd like to roam around even my yard or some of my neighbors' yards to show you examples, I really think trying to move the camera around with Zoom, it becomes a little bit more trouble than it's worth. I think sometimes the visuals aren't as easy. So hopefully with having a stable background, we can show you some good examples of some of these species. So anyways, let me go ahead and get started. Yeah, so the first thing I always go over is, why do I care? I wrote, it's because some species, when they get dug in, it becomes hopeless. I don't Yeah, today's talk is not about hopelessness or the inability to I guess have some success fighting some of these different species. I think it's more about educating each of you so you're a little more able to identify some of these species early on. When you have a I'll go ahead and just show you right now. This is a small ligustrum sprout. You know, when you get it this young, it's so much easier to bend down and pull it gently and get the entire root, and then this plant is done. I can discard it, and I don't have to worry about it. Ligustrum, like most of these species, spreads through usually some sort of fruit, berry, which the birds enjoy. Birds are not particularly yeah, they don't mean harm, but they're part of the I guess the spreading of these different species. Anyways, I think just like this morning when we went, and Andrew helped me also, all these examples I got this morning were simply gotten just from going right around the corner for any number of green spaces that I know in my community, either some space that's next to one of my neighbor's yards or in some space that's beside. Is someone trying to speak? Sorry, I just had a little feedback. Anyways, it wasn't surprising because I knew I could do it. It only took 15-20 minutes of driving around this morning to get like 15 or 20 different examples. I think these species are everywhere, and so I'm hoping that when I show you some of these pictures, it'll help you with some of the plants you have in your own yard, and hopefully I can help you with some of your efforts to eradicate them. Anyways, well, yeah, I guess it's one of the things when I was saying why I care. It's because when I see these spaces completely overrun, it's paying me over the years. And I think I've just tried to invest myself in trying to educate my neighbors, certainly to keep these species out of my own space. But I don't want to limit it just to my space. But I do think that most of you, if you're on the call, it's because you have your own property. And so most importantly, you're trying to get a hold of what's growing in your own yard. So hopefully I can do that. Anyways, anyways, what are we covering today? I had 3 different things I was going to try and go over. One was education, a little more my suggestions on how you can help educate yourself with these different species. Next, I want to actually do some actual plant IDing. I want to be able to show you some of these examples. Some of them, I'm sure some of you already know. You know these species. For me to show you this non-native holly, I think most of you have seen this. I think some of these that I've chosen, one reason why I've chosen them is because when I go on a walk with my dog or myself into the woods, these are the species that I know are not native, that I see. I've got some feedback. Maybe someone's okay. Sorry. Yeah, this is new, trying to do with folks potentially chiming in. So yeah, sorry if I abruptly stopped. Anyways, after plant IDing, I wanted to talk a little bit about eradication efforts. I won't go into it yet, but I'll go into that. But yeah, I think it's a really important part of it. Anyways, yeah, as much as I will mention larger green spaces and grander removal projects, that's not really what I'm looking to go over today. When you have an infestation of ivy, I've certainly got suggestions. I don't mind getting questions. I don't mind talking about that a little bit today. But with ivy or wisteria, if you've got a green space that is, acreage that is infested, it's not something that I'm going to be able to show you how to eradicate it today. I really am a little more interested in helping you identify the small plants, letting you know the importance of identifying small plants. I think I wrote down that some folks use this ignore strategy. They've got space in the back of their yard, in the side of the yard that has got growing all sorts of things, and they pretty much just keep hacking it down and keep hacking it down. Or they've got something growing in the back of their yard, something like privet, and it's year after year just producing fruit and more fruit and spreading this plant. And so I'm hoping that you maybe stop and think about removing some of these species. I don't know, with my help, maybe I can help you remove some of them. Some of them, it's not as simple as just removing it. You can't just go dig up a privet. So I recognize that. So anyways, hopefully I can give you some hints on that. I will mention a little bit, talk a little bit about poison. I don't like to talk about poison. I don't want to encourage poison in any way. Everything I do, I really try and do it totally green without that. But it is something I don't want to just, refuse to discuss. And so, because I think that there are some species that sometimes, yeah, it's something you might have to consider. So, or want to consider. So anyways, let me, what time do we have? Just trying to keep myself, 10:11, so I'm a little bit behind right here. No, not so bad. Anyways, before we get started, let me see. Yeah, I wrote down, I think it's really fun to identify plants. And I want to point out that it's not just bad. Today, we're going to talk about, and I'm going to show you examples of bad things, but in part of my learning and education of my own self really was about identifying anything and everything. And it wasn't just the bad. When I find a small sprout of something, you can usually, if you have some plant, and I'm thinking most of you do, you're already into plants, you're into your gardens, you know what a lot of plants are. And so I think it's really awesome when I find really awesome trees like tupelo, black gum. Some of them are a little less exciting, like poplar, or when you find a little sprout for a pine tree. I understand those might not jump out as being exciting, but anyways, I just think the whole plant IDing thing is really fun. And one thing that I may mention, I'm sure I'll mention again, is my evolution, my education is really leapt greatly with the introduction of not just the internet, but I would say Instagram. Not to give props to some social networking site, but what it allowed me to do is to pretty easily connect with plant lovers, people who are really into plants from around the whole country, from around the world for that matter. But the folks that I meet that are into medicinal plants, or are into just native plants, or into mushrooms, or and all these same people also are very knowledgeable about invasive species. I think all of us, everybody on the phone has probably got some issue with an invasive species. So yeah, I'm not going to concentrate on the good, but I don't want you to think this is only about just being negative. And the other thing I'm going to quickly say is, let me jump around a lot. Sorry about that. But what was I going to say? I lost my train of thought. Anyways, all right. I mentioned Instagram. I wrote down there 20,000 native plant species in North America. There are just a lot of species. Same with the invasive species. It goes on and on. I'm not going to hit all of them. And if some of you, whether you send me pictures later on, or ask me about this, some of the species I'm not knowledgeable on. I think most of you would probably agree that the species you know best are the ones you're most familiar with. Most everyone knows about ivy. I don't have ivy in my yard anymore because I got rid of it. It's always on the edges though. It's always trying to creep in. So I'm still fighting ivy. I don't have any wisteria in my yard, but I have wisteria across the street. Fortunately, I don't see it popping up, but I'm always on the watch. I think that's something I want to impress upon you. When you see plants, you don't know what they are. I hope one of the main things you get out of this lesson today is, if you don't send me an email and ask me to help you identify something, or you ask for my help, that you try to connect with other folks that care, and you try to get yourself better educated just by asking more questions. I think that's, when I talk about education, which I was, I've got down 10:15. So where are we? We don't have to tell me, but I think we're doing good on my time. But when I talk about education, it's all these things I'm kind of, it's these different things that I'm talking about, whether it be the internet, Instagram, or just engaging people who do know better. I haven't, and I may not go on and on about Trees Atlanta, but I absolutely, some of you I'm sure have joined here in Atlanta. There's a I'll call it the department. I mean, they're folks that are devoted to forest restoration. That's what I think it's still called. They go on a forest restoration project. They get volunteers. You end up having, you know, 50, maybe even 100 volunteers going out to a green space to work on removal of some particular species. Usually it's privet or ivy. Anyways, I think that's such a wonderful place to learn. I certainly learned a heck of a lot that way. I think when you do something like that, you're around lots of people who are really, that's what they understand. They're appreciating, as many of you do, you appreciate the importance of learning more about invasive species. So today's lesson is, I'm not the guru. I don't know everything. I'm just passionate about wanting to know and wanting to learn. And you know, again, one of the takeaways is I hope you reach out to me if you have anything in your yard that you need help removing, or how to maybe remove it. So anyways, we aren't in education, which I'm already talking about anyway. So maybe we'll be on to the plant ID before I know it. Nerd, I put down nerd for myself, nerd. Someone who can't learn enough about something. That's what I am when it comes to pretty much everything trees. And so I'm always open to anything that's related to trees. But yeah, it's just really interesting to me, and I like to read about it, and I certainly like to talk to people about it, and I like to get out and walk around. I think these virtual workshops are great, you know, but you know, visually, I know I wish it could be more beautiful, you know. I don't know. I still think it's a great way we're connecting. I think it's a way you get to know who I am, and maybe open yourself up or maybe in the future you'll be a little more, I don't know, able to reach out. If maybe I'm your first person who's excited to be that person to help you out. So anyways,
Hey, to let you know, Zoom keeps asking me to unmute. It says the host is asking me to unmute. So something is auto doing that. Sorry, I'll shut up now.
no, that was nice. Michelle, yeah, you're not, yeah, I'm good. So thank you for the warning. Anyways, let me see, education strategy. I just put with threatening plants, like we're discussing, sometimes you don't realize they've invaded until it's too late. So again, I think, you know, recognizing, you know, plants, which we're going to get to plant ID in a second, it's so important. If you can, you know, it's about identifying the plant, it's about pulling the plant, it's about when you do identify the plant, you know, how am I going to get rid of it? Because like in this small example, which I don't know how easily you can see, because I'll try this because my back needs a break real quick, is, you know, this right one here, when I pulled it, I snapped off the root. Okay, I'm not sure if you can see that very well, but and so with all these species, I think, I mean, this kind of more into eradication, and at least talking about how to actually remove a plant, because if you just willy-nilly go clip the top of a plant, it's going to grow back. Okay, so we're going to come back to eradication, because that's next. Right now we're going to jump to plant ID in just a second. Let me see if there's anything else I wanted to mention. If you don't know, take a pic. Yeah, I already talked about the pictures. You know, I really can't express how important that was in my learning. You know, whether I was sometimes bringing an example and driving up to Trees Atlanta and walking in and going finding one of the people who were working there, for someone to just help me identify something, I thought that was awesome. You know, so, and also, yeah, best ways to get rid of sometimes. So I've learned a heck of a lot from Trees Atlanta over the years. Yeah, so hopefully you'll be able to learn something from me. Anyways, plant ID. Let me see, I don't have that much. Yeah, before I get started, in case you have any plants that you're trying to identify, please send me a picture. You know, I even thought about today's thing, that maybe we would invite folks to send pictures in today. You know, that's probably a little bit much. Not that I mind someone sending a picture right now, but we've got a good 15 examples, and so just know later on you can send me a picture. That's totally fine. All right, here are my examples. All right, so I'm just going to kind of at this point stop reading, and I'm going to try and, let me move my paper over to the right and kind of go through. I've got these kind of broken out into I've got some vine examples, things that are crawling vines. I don't have that many examples. I've got some examples of more shrubs, sometimes these shrubs, say, like you might call a holly a shrub, but this, and I can't even tell you right off the top of my head which variety of an Asian holly this is. It's not showing the red berries. This is a different holly. It has a different leaf. I think most folks have probably, seen. This one right here is, and maybe it's easier just against my hand. These are the ones that are really sharp. I actually think this is nicknamed Christmas holly. Beautiful red berries, absolutely. And these things, I understand, like a lot of these species, sometimes these have even been sold from a nursery. The reason is because holly is just, once you put them in the ground, you really don't have to worry about watering them or anything. They will grow no matter what. You can hack them and well, I guess we'll say prune them back as hard as you want, and they'll grow back strong. So I understand the selling point, but these are species that, yeah, I'm just going to say they fall in the category of an invasive species. And I usually, like myself, have judged this not as much because I've read it in a book, but because when I go out into the forest, it's pretty apparent certain species, like this is another species. I'm going to go ahead and jump from holly and throw it over. We can always bring them back on the table, but so a little easier to see. This one does not have the pretty, I would say they're kind of purplish, bluish berries. That's a good idea. Thank you. I'm holding off before I tell you what this is. These leaves are sharp as all get out, and no one likes dealing with this. And once these get established in the woods, like it's extremely difficult to get rid of. We'll just say that. I've never dealt with an infestation in my own yard. I remember 15 years ago, I actually bought this at the suggestion of someone at the nursery, and planted it, and it grew, and it took me 2 or 3 years to get rid of, but I got rid of it and I'll never grow it again. It is called Mahonia. Again, I don't know. I know Latin names of some of these plants. I'm probably not going to go into the Latin name. I can certainly confirm that. Yeah, this is another really, really tough plant. It has gorgeous, it's actually got a really cool flowers, the way they pop, they come out, and the fruit becomes these beautiful blue purple berries. So yeah, I don't want to go on and on about Mahonia. It's another one that is like if this thing really gets going in a forest, you're not going to get in there. It is one of the sharpest. Like these things hurt. They really hurt, and they're really hard to get rid of. And yeah, I'm just going to stop there. I don't know if my commentary on some of these species is detailed enough. So again, if someone wants to interrupt me, don't feel like you've got to stop or you've got to wait for me to stop, please.
We have a question here.
Please.
Todd.
Yeah, please.
Would you recommend the plant subreddits for identifying plants as well?
Can you ask that again?
Would you recommend the plant subreddits? I'm guessing it's the Reddit as in the website for identifying plants as well.
It's funny. I think last time I said good question to every single question. So I don't know the answer to that. I don't use that. I know when, I think it's a good question though, because Instagram is certainly not you can certainly type in the common name or the Latin name of a species, do hashtag, and you can usually find what someone has tagged something as. But as I've learned, good and bad, like if I'm looking for what a black oak looks like and I put in Quercus velutina, you're not necessarily going to only see black oak. Some folks will tag something as black oak because they think it's black oak, but it's not black oak. And so I think the same thing goes with anything invasive. There's some other vines up here that resemble other plants. I think some of these it's one of the things that I think that makes this challenging. I mean, this is cherry laurel. Cherry laurel. There's an Asian kind of small tree shrub. It's not the worst invasive out there. You see it everywhere. It's in everyone's backyard. It's not sharp. It's not particularly impressive. It's not the worst. Anyways, what was I going to say? Reddit. I was going to say that when I first started hunting.
The subreddits I'm referring to, sorry, I was the one who said it.
That's fine.
It's you post a picture and a whole group of people can weigh in. They also have this for bugs and flowers, and it's one of the tip of the tongue subreddits. So I thought it may work for identification because it would have a lot of plant nerds, such as yourself, weighing in to say, oh no, clearly this is the from Malaysia thing.
No, that's good to know. I wouldn't mind. Is this? I mean, I've heard of Reddit. That's what we're talking about. Reddit, I guess.
Reddit splinters into what are called subreddits. Sorry to hijack this.
No, that's fine.
As said, there are, depending on what you're looking for, there's a subreddit for everything. There is lawn porn, where people post pictures of their lawns and go, golly, look at this lawn, because we're humans. But these subreddits are whatever your specific interest is. So if it's tip of the tongue, you can say, I'm thinking of this thing that's like the thing, what's the word? And they do that for plant identification as well. Like, I found this really cool flower that I want to plant, but I don't know what it is. Reddit, help me! And all the nerds gather.
I mean, it certainly sounds like it's worth a look. I mean, I know that even though I've sometimes see incorrect things identified using the methods I've used, and I was my one comment was, I remember there was an app, it was probably 3 or 4 years ago when I was earlier on in my more pronounced obsession with identification of different plants. I used some app, and I remember trying to get it to help me identify a couple things, and I think it gave me the wrong identified things wrong once or twice, and so I just gave up on it. So I shouldn't have been so quick to get rid of that. I think that I think you can't go wrong. Just like when I'm looking to figure out, I've got an oak in my front yard that I think is a black oak. It's what I actually did my first workshop on, and I still don't know 100% sure, but it still helps me to venture out and see what other people are saying. It sounds like what you're talking about certainly is worth investing in, but it's certainly, or investing your time in. But I would think, like most things, you can get some bad information, or you can't trust it necessarily.
It is literally called "What's This Plant?" subreddit. Dear God.
Well, I mean, yeah. Well, I'll check it out later, because I'd be interested, because I absolutely, you stick me in the woods over in one of these spaces being overrun, I guarantee it won't take you 5 seconds to find a few things I don't know what they are. I think my experience is, you can, a lot of times, once you get used to identifying non-natives, when you're in the woods and a beautiful, if you look at a fern, it usually looks like it's supposed to be there. When you see aggressive invasives, they're usually, you can see their aggression. You can see them spreading across the floor. You can see, when you look at privet coming into a green space, you see this wall of this light green kind of coming in. You can see it coming in, like when you go to green spaces. I'm sure most of you have been on a walk or something, and you're in a wooded area, which maybe is adjacent to people's houses, and you'll see off the backyards of all the properties, you'll see these different species coming into the forest. And so, those are more disheartening examples, because when you see a wall of ivy coming out of every single yard, just about, it's like, how are you supposed to save your green space? You need more of a buy-in from your neighbors. Again, that's more of a discussion we'll hold off on that, but I certainly care. And so anyways, thanks for your question, and got follow, keep going. Anyways, I'll jump back into the examples. Let me see where my time, I think my examples were hoping to stop by 10:45. How are we? Okay, so 15 minutes or so. So I've got a lot more I'm gonna try and go through, but do interrupt me, please, if we get some more. I'm gonna just go ahead and show privet right now. It's right here in my eyesight. Privet's not very pretty. I think usually when you see privet, depending on if it's getting any sunlight, it'll look more sparse. These leaves are, that's just, I don't know. I'd like to think most folks know what privet looks like. I think you have variegated privet out there, but generally what you see in the forest is your basic I don't know. This is, I'll call it Asian. I'll call it Asian privet. I know that ligustrum, which this is, and this is, these are in the same family as privet, but they've got a very different looking leaf. Now I say the same family, so anybody on the phone who wants to correct me with the relationship, feel free to interject, because I just know that ligustrum, just like privet, a lot of these species are species you will see in some of your nurseries. I won't name them. That's not something else. So anyways, I'm not going to try and get too many things into the frame. So I had a few examples of ligustrum. You'll see some slightly different shaped leaves of ligustrum. I see it in the woods. I see it. It's invading everywhere. It's actually a very beautiful dark green leaf. It's really tough. And I understand why people use the ligustrum. If you need something that's going to grow and you can't take care of it, and you want it to grow big and give you a screen, privacy, the same reason why privet's oftentimes grown. It grows fast. You don't have to worry about watering it. It's somewhat, I don't want to say pretty. I think there's so many beautiful native plants. Of course, I'm going to choose the natives. Anyways, so I don't want to go on and on about privet. It's bad stuff. You hear the berries starting to pop out. These. Yeah, Andrew uses the word prolific. I almost think the word prolific sounds positive. It doesn't sound negative enough. Prolific, as Andrew was, reminding me, it's just something that is aggressive. Wasn't the word? What was the word you used, Andrew? Anyways, I think most folks know what prolific means. It sounds positive. Anyways, I don't like to use it with aggressive, because I'd rather use something more negative sounding. But anyways, very prolific. All these examples are very prolific. They're everywhere. Like I can go almost any green space that's not taken care of. It's being overrun. Here in the city, I think everyone's seen examples. So, anyways, these examples and me going to those spaces is just because it was easy access to some of these examples. I still here's one. I actually stuck these in the ground. This is privet too, just to show you. This is privet, just a little bit of a root. It's kind of hard to say, ooh, I don't know, that's privet. This is a ligustrum. They don't look much different. They're both bad, but when I look them in the ground, they glow to me. Most of these invasive species, they're just really easy once you get used to. If you're not sure, then let me know. I mean, I really want to help you. All right, let's show a few more. This actually is Bradford pear. Okay, this is a tree that was, I think they started to sell. I don't know. I'm going to say 10 years, 15 years ago. It's invasive. I think it's a cross between an Asian tree and I don't. It was bred to grow fast. It grows. I don't know. I wouldn't want to talk about Bradford pear. I don't want to talk about Bradford pear. I don't like this tree. It's ugly. Yeah. If anybody's on the phone that wants to speak to this, then yeah, sorry. Bradford pear is not good. I think most folks think that because it's Bradford pear, bringing it back real quick, that it's sold in a nursery. It's a Bradford pear tree. It's got beautiful fall color, and therefore, ooh, let's plant it. I think people were overplanting these 10 years ago, and the problem is, if you go into green spaces, you see this plant popping up. They're really, really difficult to get rid of. The roots go deep. If even a small little Bradford pear that's like 6 inches long, it's got a really tough taproot that you really have a hard time ever getting to. So, anyways, any questions so far? This is more Bradford pear. This is a younger Bradford pear. If you were looking at a Bradford pear, this is what you'd look for, or it would just be a little sprout. Yeah, again, go ahead.
Are the Bradford pears the ones that show up on campuses and they smell awful when the flowers are blooming?
You got it.
Oh, they were all over my campus. They smell like dead fish, and not even in ooh, I can fry the fish. No, rotten fish.
Yeah, I think there's a number of species. I mean, you've got, let me take this one back. This is Bradford pear. I mean, there's a few. I'm going to reach over here to we'll call it Asian. I don't like to say Chinese because I'm not trying to pick on China at all. but this is an Asian elm. Okay, I know this species, just like Bradford pears maybe 10 years ago, is a tree that's really tough, can handle being planted in a parking lot with no dirt, no mulch, no water, and it keeps on growing. It's actually a pretty tree, the elm, but it's extremely aggressive and invasive. I say because you see it just moves into the forest. Any of these accompanying these neighbor forests, it's anyways, it's just not a great plan. I think some of these trees, they were planted with the best of intentions. You wanted something that could survive the hot summer heat in Atlanta. It could survive in a space that maybe wouldn't get watered so well. I understand the arguments for some of these species, but it's not like you just plant them in that space and that you're all good. They're going, once they're planted, they're propagating and spreading. And anyways, I think that's most folks on the phone probably know. I think an elm is one of those that people would probably feel bad. I mean, if anyone has one in their yard, I hate to be criticizing some plant you might have in your yard. I don't. It's nothing. Yeah, not personal. Anyways, let me see what other tree. Why don't we grab the tree of heaven? This one, I don't. It's got a nickname, tree of heaven. I've just got a couple examples. I think I'll lay down the leaves. It's like 2 pieces. Beautiful leaf, extremely aggressive. I actually don't know a whole lot about tree of heaven. I don't have tree of heaven in my yard. I haven't really seen it in my yard, but it didn't take a 5-second walk down the road to find examples. It's one of the I guess some of the trees are a little more threatening because they just get big, and some of these trees they've got they I don't know. I don't know what to say of a tree over. I don't know. Kind of lost my train of thought.
Mid-story tree that propagate pretty well.
Yeah, I don't think folks can hear Andrew. He was talking about these mid-story trees. I think all these examples, whether it be the Bradford pear or it be the Asian elm or tree of heaven. I think these specifically are these understory trees that people plant because they like the idea of planting something that's not going to be huge and potentially threaten their house at a later date. They like the idea that it's easy to grow and it grows fast, and sometimes and they like the fact that it spreads. I still didn't. You were saying something before, Andrew, about the mid-story that they're. I think when you get the mid-story, they have the ability to spread and completely cover or prevent any sunlight from getting to the floor, and you end up losing, all the understory stuff you might like. You end up losing your dogwoods. You end up losing everything you might find in a forest because it gets so thick. I think when you have something like tree of heaven or you've got privet, you will get these thickets, and it's not like they become thickets and they go away. Once they become a thicket, there's nothing else. And you may have some of the bigger trees that are above, but usually you end up having ivy that's in this space also, and those start climbing the big trees, and before you know it, you really have lost the whole space. So anyways, that's sounding way too negative. Tree of heaven, yeah, it's not in my wheelhouse for a species that I know a lot about. I just know that it is one of the top species that is problematic and something that is targeted, I guess, if you care about working in this or about saving, I guess, the green spaces we have. Are you gonna say something?
Oh, can you talk about IDing it from the sumac?
Yeah. No, that's actually a very good point. Because I grabbed this thinking, I know that tree of heaven looks a lot like sumac, and he was saying the way you identify sumac, and I'm sure there's other ways, but is to break off one of the leaves and to crumple it up, and if it smells like burnt peanut butter, then that's the bad stuff. Tree of heaven. I don't know That does smell like peanut butter. This was the one before one of them didn't smell like peanut butter earlier, but it smells like peanut butter now. That's not a good thing, even though I do love peanut butter. So I'm going to set this down on the side. I see some vines. We're almost done with most everything but the vines. What's our time at? 10:40. So we have 5 minutes. So I'm going to try and quickly. This is silverberry or silver thorn. They have wicked thorns. I don't know. I see a couple of thorns. I think they call them silver because the backside kind of does look silverish. This is a shrub that kind of grows out in pretty aggressive, almost vines. Like it'll do some wrapping. It's not a vine, but this is Eleganus. I want to say this is also actually related to privet. This isn't one of the horrible ones that I hate. It's one reason is the thorns are kind of hidden and they will stab you bad. But again, this is a species that will spread and completely cover the forest floor. It probably doesn't get more than about 8 or 10 feet tall, but it just goes. And I don't know if we're talking about rhizomes. We're talking about the different ways some of these species spread. Some of these species, they have a fruit and they spread and the fruit pops up some other place, but other ones grow in more of a colony. I think we've all seen this where if you snap off or cut off one, it'll just shoot up another, or usually it's already got multiple, I guess we'll call it heads. Anyway, silverberry is horrible. I don't like it. Pretty easy to identify. If you catch it young, you can pull the sprout just like the other ones I was showing you. Oh, there's mimosa. Most folks have seen mimosa. They got the pretty pink flower. I'm not going to go on and on about mimosa. It's kind of a nice, elegant tree, not too tall, but very, very, very aggressive. Yeah, it's not my top. It's actually certainly a more beautiful tree if you're thinking about. Yeah, but we're not. The judgment isn't about beauty or not beauty. All these species are not just some tree that sits there. There are ones that are proliferating and I say that right. Yeah, they're not staying in their space. They're not playing nice with others. They're taking over. So that's certainly the case with all these.
Speaking of mimosa, we got a question.
Please.
Sam Kramer. Although these plants spread rapidly, they can serve a purpose in the ecosystem. For example, mimosa is nitrogen fixing. Ivy is often controlling erosion. When removing invasives, what suggestions do you have for replacing their functions?
That's a really good question. I don't think everyone heard the question, did they?
It's in the chat.
So yeah, if
hear
anyone's
him at all, no.
Yeah, it's in the chat. The question. I think I will try to ask questions. You can fill in the blank. The question is.
I'll type the question.
I guess.
In the chat. Yeah.
I want to say, this is an example of a plant tree, and I'm not as averse to describing. I think that some of these trees that I've targeted, still serve functions or take a place in the environment where they do serve some good, whether it be for animals or even the soil. I think someone that was part of what the chat was explaining. I'd have to have you read it again.
Sure. Remember it says nitrogen fixing?
This nitrogen fixing. So that means it's taking away from or adding to nitrogen,
Yeah,
or it's replenishing the nitrogen.
Convert nitrogen to form usable.
What was that first word? It's converting the nitrogen to something that the other rest of the plants can use around. All right, I'm sorry if I messed that up. It was certainly a well-worded question for sure. But what natives can you do to replace that? Yeah, I mean, I should be able to speak to this. I mean, my yard, this isn't. I don't want to go on about my yard. My whole yard is pretty much native, except for the invasives that are always trying to come in. I'm all about finding alternatives to plant. I can't speak to what specifically would work as a replacement for the nitrogen fixing that say mimosa does, and I can't actually say that can't say that the plants that I've put in my yard that I've chosen specifically to put something back into the soil. I mean, I absolutely tried to choose a variety of plants. I certainly, when I say native, I'm thinking about native to Georgia that actually would have been native here, as opposed to even something native that might have been native on the coast. Let's say a southern magnolia that's not native to Atlanta, but it's still native to Georgia on the coast. Certainly. Anyways, we're not gonna, yeah, I might get lost in your question because I don't think I have really the best answer. I certainly have lots of native plants that I would suggest if you're looking for an understory tree, or if you're looking for even ground cover sorts of alternatives. Because when I talk about removing things that any of these things, they may be serving a purpose. I mean, I think one of the main things that I recognize is erosion control. I think a lot of the reason why people plant plants is to help with erosion. Either they've got some hilly spot, they could even have a depressed spot that kind of maybe retains water. They want something that's going to drink up that water. I mean, I absolutely could speak to those different things, but I don't think I'll be able to give a good answer today, and time is limited. So I'll probably go ahead and stop with my answer, even though I don't think I gave that good of a answer. So hope that helped a little bit. All I've got left, I've got a couple of trees. I don't want, what's our time? So we have 14 minutes. I still want to talk about eradication a little bit, and I don't have, I'm going to share some of the things that I've got with eradication. But real quick, I just want to show a couple of things. This is kudzu. I don't have kudzu in my yard, thank goodness, and kudzu is not an easy one. I just put the 3 leaves there to give you, to see what it looks like. I just cut off a small piece of the vine. I think most folks have seen kudzu from a distance. If you've got kudzu, that's not one that's going to be, the problem with kudzu, I know that below the soil are really, really fragile. Almost imagine a thread. There's it's so light that if you even think about pulling it, it will just snap, and the root stays in the ground. So even though you may have pulled off part of the plant, it's just going to grow back. And so anyways, that would be in the category of eradication, where I might talk about it more, although I don't have some. We'll talk a little about kudzu. I'm more than happy to talk offline. I think a lot of these things, it's probably better for you to reach out to me, and I'm happy to chat on the phone, or you can certainly try an email also. Michelle will share my info. This next one right here is wisteria. Just to give you an example, I think wisteria is one of the worst. This isn't the most beautiful example. This one was growing along the ground, and once it's able, it will climb a tree, and it will strangle a tree. It will kill a tree. The way it grows underneath the ground is, I'd say, almost worse than kudzu in some way. If you've got a bad infestation of this, that's not an easy task either, but more than happy to talk about that with you offline, try and help you. I think with a lot of these things, and I guess I would have said it in eradication, I'm gonna go ahead and put a wisteria down, unless anybody needs, if anybody needs to see a closer up picture of any of this, more than happy to grab these out of my pile and do a close up. This is non-native honeysuckle. This is the Asian honeysuckle. I actually have coral honeysuckle, the red flower, all over my yard. I love it. It's pretty aggressive, native. I love it. This one's the white flower. A lot of folks think this is native. It's not really. It looks very similar to the native one even. Anyways, it's not the top one. It's not pulling down trees, so we'll move on from it. It's just one of the non-native species. There's ivy, good old English ivy. Looks pretty, prevents erosion, but it is bad stuff. One thing more related to eradication with really not all vines, most vines, I shouldn't say most vines. A lot of them do not actually flower and produce fruit unless they climb. Most folks, if you've got ivy, if you don't have your ivy climbing up your tree, you probably don't realize that ivy will produce a flower and a whole bunch of berries like a lot of other plants, but it doesn't do it unless it climbs. So in some ways, by not letting your ivy climb a tree, you're preventing it from producing fruit. But as we know, ivy's got other ways to spread along the ground, from one yard to the next yard. So it's anyways, great if you might not let it climb, but we still, I would still like to help you eradicate it if you do have it in your yard. Anyways, this one is porcelain berry, lighter weight vine, not going to pull down a tree, but really, really aggressive. It's just starting to produce the flowers and the berries. This was just an example over at my neighbor's house. We're almost done with my examples. That's ligustrum. There's more porcelain berry. That's porcelain berry, both these, right? When it does these two different type of leaves. Yeah, that's just a quick example. This is porcelain berry where you've got just more of a heart shape, and then you've got these ones that are more of a trident. This is the same plant. Extremely aggressive. It looks like muscadine. I could even go grab an example of muscadine over here growing in my yard. Muscadine is native. I don't mind it, but I do cut it back. This stuff is not growing in my yard. I make sure doesn't start growing. This is actually mulberry. This is a mulberry tree. Sometimes there's a debate, Andrew were talking about, some folks will say a red mulberry is native and a white mulberry is not. I kind of want to have the conversation about, I know there's some natives even out there that are pretty aggressive. Time's of the essence, so I really don't have time to go into, I guess, native plants that are also aggressive. Absolutely, I realize you've got box elder, you've got, maybe we'll say, well, this one's not native. This is hibiscus, which is also a invasive, more small tree. Pretty flower, a lot of folks like it, but anyways, not tops in a list in my book. But anyway, so that was my list of lots of examples, and I think we're down to probably about 10 minutes. Yeah, so I'm short on time, so I'm not going to say ask me more questions yet, but I know that Michelle and Andrew have been kind enough to hang around afterwards. So we're going to try and, yeah, I'm just going to, I don't know, eradication. First, let's see what I wanted to, I know. One of the points I wanted to make is when it comes to eradication, whether you have ivy taking over, or a lot of these species, you're not going to get rid of it in 2 or 3 years. I just think it's important to accept that, I don't want folks to try, or folks that are trying to get rid of an invasive species to think it's something you can just go get rid of in a day or two, or in even 1 season or 2 seasons. I think that it's something that you're kind of in a constant battle with. And I just don't get discouraged. I think that there's some things that I can tell you that I'm going to tell you in a second that will help you. I don't have the solution to everything. When you're, I don't like the idea of folks spraying poison at all. I think when it comes to, and I'll go ahead and just comment on poison to start. When I use poison, if I've used poison, I'm very, very careful about I get a small little, imagine like a small little capful of the poison. I'll get a paintbrush and I'll cut what I'm trying to kill off at the trunk, and I'll use the paintbrush to paint on that spot, and then I'll cover that spot with a pot and pretty much give it no sunlight and no rain. I'm never going to use a poison if there's any rain anywhere near. I really don't want to spray poison, period. I think there's some species, I guess like kudzu, because their roots underground, you really can't get it. I think you end up, I'm not going to go on and on about poison, but there are cases to use it. I think when I've used it, this is me. This is not anyone else. I just know that I just really try and be very cognizant of how much I'm using and where I'm using it, if it's going to rain. I don't want to use it. Anyway, so I'm going to go into a few things that I've listed down and show you one of my one, I don't want to call it a secret method because it's not going to solve all your problems, but one, I put stop the seed. Okay. All these different plants. I think one of the things you need to know is once you've learned the bad plants, you need to, your strategies needs to include not letting it go to seed, not letting it just propagate it anymore. I think there's lots of invasive species that you'll find just along the ground. They just be maybe just little weedy plants. They're more of a nuisance. Again, I think, you know, it's important. You don't just mow over them. You're just putting the seed, like, especially after they've seeded, you're just putting all those seeds right back into the ground. You really end up having an infestation with whatever it is. I don't know. I say stop the seed. I don't, like all these species, privet, you're not going to be able to stop the seed in all these plants in all these different spaces. It's just not possible. But at least I can at least have your mind. Just remember that is one of the things you want to be trying to avoid. Number two, don't plant evil plants. You know, if you're not sure if something's evil, I don't know. I don't want folks to feel bad, but I really would like to impress upon all of you, certainly. And when you have the opportunity to influence your neighbors, your friends, to not plant something that's kind of aggressive, I guess I would just ask you, try and do that. You know, that's all we can do, is try and educate other people. Tell your neighbors. Next way to not have evil plants is I put kill them. I put pull their roots. Okay, you've got to get their root. If you don't get your root, then you're I don't know. But that said, I don't want to suggest that cutting back doesn't have a place. I think in some cases, and I'm getting really quickly to my method. You can grab the phone. I'm gonna move this just to show my example in a second. Before I do this, I pull the roots. I guess I realized that around my yard, there were certain cases where I had things that were about the fruit or that were already established. You had an established trunk, and I knew that cutting it back to the ground wasn't really going to help, because something like privet or ligustrum or a whole bunch of these species that I just showed you will just sprout back up. And so my solution, one of my solutions to not use poison, was to find myself a pot. Okay, and whether my pot is this or is this big plastic thing, if I have a trunk of something that I'm trying to kill, so I've just cut down a huge, let's say, holly bush tree. Let's say I've got a trunk that's, you know, it's a big, massive thing. Maybe this thing was huge. You know, if you cut it to the ground, the holly is just going to grow right back. If you have a big old trunk of a privet and you cut it to the ground, it's going to grow right back. If you've got it growing the whole backyard, then this method's not going to work. But if you have something that's not cool, that's like right here, what you can do is you can put a pot on top of it. So this is my non-poisonous method. So when I do this, you might say, okay, that looks ridiculous. I'm going to leave this in my yard. No. That's why I actually wouldn't use this plastic one. What I have done, I've realized that I have a good idea, and I've got it all over my yard. I've got like 9 or 10 examples of things, not necessarily invasive species, but maybe something that wasn't native that I was trying to kill, and it just wouldn't die. Anyway, so what I do is, if I've got the trunk right here, okay, I don't have an example, I didn't have anything to cut down. What I will do
Isn't there one directly behind you in the yard?
There is, actually, and that was one of the things that we potentially go pan over there. There's actually 3 of them, so we'll walk over there in 1 second just to show you. But I think that what I learned was, when I first did this, I'm like, hey, that looks kind of that looks dumb. We'll just say dumb, okay? But I'm all about yard art and having fun in the yard. So what I realized, if you go find a pot you really like and a planter, and you switch it up, put it upside down like this, I've completely blocked the light, because even that little bit of hole is some light. So if I do this and I put water in there, I've got a wonderful bird bath. And what I've done, and over here behind us, is you've got examples of one of them, which I guess will go a little bit mobile maybe. We're gonna wait 1 second. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how smart this seems. It's not that I think I deserve some award from this idea. I just think that if you see some of the examples where I've got, if I don't do a bird bath on top, I will find some sort of vertical art. It may be like, you can see there's an old, you've got a bowling ball. All right, so maybe the bowling ball is, that's not, I guess we'll walk over here real quick. I think this one's probably a better example though. Now this, I've got river oats growing here, and in the morning, especially, I mean, this is a party for the birds. I mean, I've really realized one of the things I've done in my yard is I've got a big fat house. I don't want to switch to something else. I'm telling Andrew, you don't have to turn it around quite yet. I had a white oak that I had taken out, and so now it's, the whole vertical is covered with Virginia creeper, which is actually something I'll just mention really. Well, I guess we'll show it in a second. Virginia creeper is an example of a native that's pretty aggressive. All right, we'll say extremely aggressive. But one thing it doesn't do is it doesn't really take down a tree. And one thing I realized is sometimes you've got a plant that, even though you can't stand it, you really don't feel like you can really get a handle of it. It's a plant that I realized, you know what, if I can't beat it, I'm gonna go with it. And one thing I've done with my Virginia creeper, I just cut it back where when it gets a little bit too thick, or I don't know, I don't let it consume me. If I've got something like privet, then I'm going to get rid of it. But there are other species that are kind of aggressive, that are kind of annoying, that it's kind of a work in progress. I think all of us probably have some certain species. You know, if you've got ivy completely taking over an acre of land, I mean, I can't expect, I mean, you'll spend every single day for the next 2 years trying to, maybe not that long, but anyways, I've got ideas sometimes where you've got something that you might prefer get rid of, but maybe you can kind of learn to live with it. And there's some things I think that I wanted to kind of mention, that when it comes to cutting something back, you know, sometimes I cut something back, like here's a mulberry that I'll just pull it. I know that I can't get the root, okay, but I'm gonna keep pulling these and just cut it back. And anything that's growing a little bit too big, I'm gonna, like, I don't have a lawn, I don't do a lawnmower, but also, you know, if things get too thick, cut it back. It's okay. You can, you know, there's lots of species, even really good, you know, you could have a oak leaf hydrangea that's gorgeous. If you cut it to the ground, it'll come back. It's beautiful. You know, I'm not saying that's an example of something you would necessarily cut to the ground, but anyway, I've got, I don't know, I guess my river oats are a good example of something that kind of, it's a little bit, I mean, I don't think people think of river oats. Most people don't have river oats, so they're not thinking about it being an aggressive plant, but you've got oats here. You've got a lot of seeds. Guess what? I've got river oats everywhere, but okay, if it starts to grow where I don't want it, I just kind of cut it back. And it's, I don't know, I just think it's a beautiful option instead of other grasses. And yeah, I mean, just like, yeah, I think there was a question earlier about native options. I absolutely have have ideas for native plants you might could plant. Let me see. I don't know if, like, this one's almost covered. I guess it's kind of an example of me taking, you know, something I was trying to kill. There's just Virginia creeper in here. And I just kind of built a little, I mean, I think most people who are into their gardens, and they do, I think everybody's got a little bit of free form art going in the yard. So, you know, in this case, I just used a mix of things I had running, you know, sitting around to make somewhat of a design that just didn't look like a, that's gonna attract some mosquitoes. Oh, and anybody worried about mosquitoes in those bird baths, I just make sure to blow them out with a hose at least every couple of days. So, but you know, I think the acorn, it's not that this is so beautiful, but an upside down pot in your yard, it looks dumb, but I realized if I just put a little something on top, it actually makes it kind of like, this isn't the best example. These are in the side of my yard. No one really sees this. In my front yard, I've got these wrought iron, they're actually lightning rods. I got them at Kudzu Antiques, but they don't have them anymore. But anyways, it was just a really cool vertical. I can see one over there. I could even show you. But I know we're winding down. It's probably right on time to stop, isn't it? All right, so we're already over.
Yeah, it's about, yeah, it's 11. So thank you, Scott, and thank you everybody who's joined us in the class today. We will stay around to answer some questions. and maybe Scott can show us some other examples that he has around. But if you need to leave, we totally understand, and we will be sending an email, a follow-up email with the recording, the complete recording of this class, and all those suggestions that you've been sending us, like iNaturalist and different links and websites. We will also be sending that in the follow-up email. So thank you for joining us, and thank you, Scott. And we'll stay around for more questions.
Thanks everybody for your time. Have a nice day.
There was a question here about the eradication of the silver thorn plant.
Silverberry or silverthorn? Yeah, silver. Yeah.
If you have any suggestions.
How big is the one you're trying to deal with? Big?
Let's see. The question is coming from Federica. Federica, how big is the one that you're trying to get rid of?
I mean, I don't necessarily need to know the size.
8 feet. 8 feet.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't dealt with one lately. My recollection is if you look at the base of that plant, I think when you're dealing with a big bush that's kind of overrun and you want to get rid of it, the first step is to cut it to the ground. Okay, let's see where all the mothers or your primary growth is coming from. Okay, even if you clip those to the ground, it's gonna shoot up again. Okay, so I mean, one thing is if I'm gonna try and kill something like that that's really, really tough, I gotta see what I'm working with. The only way to do that is cut the whole thing back, maybe leave a little bit, and like have marked where those exit points from the ground are. I might get poison, and I might paint poison on those ends. I think silverberry is something, or silverthorn is it's really hard to kill. So now if you only have 1 or 2 exit points, I think you could, in theory, use my upside down pot method. I know, I guess, anyways, I love my method. I think it does have a place. I think, I know, let me just give an example. I had a crepe myrtle I was trying to kill. Actually, I've got crepe myrtles I've got a crepe myrtle in the front that I think I killed 10 years ago. And I don't actually use poison on it, but that thing still is trying to come back 10 years later. And so I just keep the pot on top of it. And so occasionally I open the pot and there'll be something trying to grow, or sometimes it'll kind of go up under the pot and out again. I just keep watch, and I just keep pulling, clipping anything that starts to grow new. Actually, I don't think it's 10 years old, but I'm just saying that you could easily be fighting a plant for 5 years plus, like some of these plants, certainly if you're not using poison, okay? If you're using a poison, I still think you can do minimal but strong poison on that spot and just cover it. You covering it, one, blocks the sunlight. It also means that if it rains, it doesn't wash anywhere. It means that, yeah, I think, by not getting any sun and giving that shot of poison, you have a much more likely chance, I think, of killing it first time. So you're not using much poison to begin with. I think that's my suggestion. Yeah, we'll stop there. Hope that helped. I think I know Frederica. We talked on email before.
Yeah, and then somebody was asking about how to sign up for the follow-up email. So everybody signed up for this class will be receiving the follow-up email.
Yeah, I don't know how many people we have on the phone. How many people are on still, Michelle? Just wondering.
We have about 10 people.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like coming to my house or seeing what I've got going on is going to be particularly helpful with invasive plants, unless you wanted to see some of these pots. I don't think they're that amazing. I think they're just part of the thing that works in my landscape. I think because I have the bat house and I needed some water features. I didn't have a pond. So it became a great way to use these pots there were some different things that I was trying to get rid of. And it was like, oh, this works. And I get some water. So anyways, my point was, I'm more than happy for folks to stop by. I know that I did a workshop on native plants. I don't have any more grass in my yard, so I'm all about all natives and seeing how we can move from having a lawn, from needing lawnmowers, from needing gas powered things. I let all the leaves fall. Anyways, I love it. I would love anyone to come visit. I live on Claremont, just south of La Vista, on the corner of Will Andrew. You can park in the side street. You can text me and see if I'm around. Love to have folks come by. I'm always up for talking about native plants, about invasive species. See if I can help you identify things. If you send me an email, I guess I'll give you my phone number anyways. Please send me pictures, and I would just encourage everyone. There are lots and lots of resources out there to figure out what you've got. And I think when it comes to actually trying to kill something, it doesn't hurt to talk to someone. If you live somewhere close, I might even be able to come by and just have a look. Yeah, try and help you out.
Yeah, and
May I
we'll
make
send
a
the email.
suggestion? Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
If you are really good with native plants, which as a plant nerd, I think that's your specialty. I admire that. You could offer your services for xeriscaping people's lawns. If they move into a new place and it's, look, European lawn, you could be like, no, let's make this native for $12 an hour.
No, I still have a day job at a computer, and I don't want to be officially saying that I don't like my job. I just said that, but I would love to do something like that. But that's it's not my business at this point. I'd be more free help. I guess I shouldn't just have it open-ended free help no matter what I'm helping with. But
Hey, you
I'm
can
certainly
have a side hustle.
well. But this is not at all about getting my name out or I mean, when I first, planted the things in my yard and I started going xeriscaping and tried I was trying to set a good example. I was hoping that I lived on Claremont, and I was hoping that my neighbors, as they rode by, would start going, huh, like, look what he's doing. He's doing something different. Maybe I could do something like that. Maybe I'll stop and ask him, what's that plant? And I mean, when you come to my house, if you ride by my house, I mean, you can see right on the edges. I mean, like the side over here behind where Andrew is getting hammered with sun all day. And it was the last place in my yard that I actually really started planting, because at first it was impossible to get anything to grow there. But if you look at it now, it's lush. And the reason is because I found species, native species, that didn't mind being hammered with sun. They didn't mind. They loved the hill. They loved the great drainage there. You have plants like that I didn't even know could be so beautiful and end up being the perfect place. I've got yuccas up and down the side. It's on outside of my fence, on the edge of my property. There's nobody walking there. I mean, the yuccas have beautiful flowers. They handle the sun like a dream. And I think they're beautiful. I mean, I think they're beautiful planet. Like, I don't know. I think the river oats are beautiful. I think the wax myrtles are awesome. They're so awesome in the sun. Yeah, I can go on. I feel like, even in my workshop on native plants, it was tough because I really couldn't show pictures, and I can't do, I think Zoom doesn't allow. I think it's just so much better to see things in person. It's not like I'm trying to get folks to come over to my house, but I really do.
House.
But I do want people to come over. I mean, because I think that I've got 80 different species. So there's, if you don't see wax myrtles really getting big and that have been pruned well, I don't think you really appreciate a wax myrtle. Most wax myrtles are they just don't look very impressive. I think, yeah, there's lots of things in my yard that I think, really work and do well. Some of it's a little bit crazy, and there's no doubt. You can just look even with, my backdrop. It's a little bit of a mess right now, but, I don't know. I think the front of the yard, everything anyone would see if they come over, and if they come over, I'll be glad to tour the backyard too. I'm on kind of a top of a hill, so and I don't know. I got some difficult landscaping that I had to figure out what would grow here, how can I get it to start growing, because I feel like a lot of times when you put something in the ground, it's on a hill. It seems like it's hard initially to get it going. I have some really good tricks, I think, with what I do with either just reusing fallen wood. Anyways, I'm rambling now, so I'm gonna shut up. Any other questions?
There's a question in the chat, Scott. A very good question, actually. Can you suggest an approach for beating back a half acre of English ivy?
How to get control of it?
An approach for beating back a half acre of English ivy.
My first thought, I guess I'll go. It's not like I have lots of thoughts. I think I like English ivy. I mean, it's like like as a challenge more than some of the other species, because I feel like English ivy, like if you got the motivation and maybe a little help, it doesn't have, if you've got a half acre, for one person to do that seems impossible. I think something like that, you need to have at least, 2, 3, 4 people. I think it's something where you would have some sort of one investment that you would find some folks that you could trust and teach to. These things were already warning a while back. They may have stopped. Are y'all still there?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah. If I go
some goats?
If I go dead. What was that? Wait.
How about some goats? That might help.
Oh, yeah. Well, I like goats. The only problem is when you use something like goats, they're not getting the roots, are they, Michelle? Or do they?
No, they just eat the leaves.
Yeah, it's kind of like, I don't want to just beat it back. I don't think you just want to beat it back. I mean, if that's the case, I think goats would be a great option. I think that if you invested some money and you got people to help you pull it, and your effort has to be, or you have to educate the people that are going to pull your ivy to actually get the roots. Because we all know if you get ivy and you get down on your hands and knees and you work at it, you can get most of the roots, okay? Can you get all the roots? No. The first time you clear ivy of a space, I just got another warning. It's really going to stop, I think. Y'all still with me though? And
Yeah, we can hear you.
Warning. Yeah, I think I just give it. I know, but it's about to drop. If I drop, I guess that won't. We can just go there. I was just gonna say, get someone to initially, like, you've got to get most of it, and then you've got to look for when it starts popping up again. When you see those new sprouts, you go to that spot. You use your hand, scrape away some of the dirt, get down the root, and pull it up. I feel like now, like when I look around my yard, I see English ivy every once in a while, but I'm always watching for it. Most of these species, like, you have to keep watching for it. But I think initially you need someone to help you get in there and get most of the ivy. And if you only get half of it one year, well, then that space is better off. Okay. The next year, don't just give up. Don't wait for it to come back really strong. I'm just saying I'm not sure how much that helped. I don't really find that the ivy is going to do much with poison. That's not something I would use poison for. I think it's because you can get the root. Something like wisteria, you can't get the root. Like, it might as well be cement. Like, it's in the ground. You're not getting it. And so if something like wisteria was taking over, I would still probably get into something where I probably get rid of the foliage, maybe with goats, but then I would spot treat when the new wisteria pops up. I'm trying to attack those spots. I think something like wisteria would be we'll talk about wisteria if someone's got wisteria, but.
Well, I'll be sending.
Plant natives and protect them.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good example. Hopefully I don't get cut off. Andrew was just reminding me, and the idea is to plant natives so that those end up taking over. Because once you get, like, when I look at my river oats, I've got a huge swath of it in the front. When this stuff gets tall and it's growing, guess what? None of the bad stuff can grow underneath it because it's shading it out. And so I think I've got St. John's wort as a ground cover in the front. It's going over about 15 by 10 foot space now in the front. Guess what? Nothing's growing up under that. And so I think you find other options, and you don't just kill the bad and just leave it, because you usually need something to replace it. One, because you just want it to look nice, but the other thing is because erosion. You want to put something in its place. And so Yeah, again, please reach out to me. I'll chit chat with anytime. If it's a month from now, you know, I'll be glad to try and help with suggestions.
Yeah, we will be, I'll be sending your email address in the follow-up email. So feel free to contact Scott and he'll be following up the conversation. But I don't think we have any other questions right now. So thank you so much, Scott. Thank you everybody who stayed and asked more questions. And we will be having more classes like these. So please stay tuned with us, following up our social media and calendar. Thank you, Scott. I hope everybody has a good afternoon and a good weekend.
Thanks, Michelle. Thanks, everybody. Take care.
Thank you for being a plant nerd. You're the
Thank you.
best.
Thank you.
Yeah, shucks, thanks. It was great.
Appreciate it. Awesome. Take care.
Great. I'm glad
Bye,
you guys
y'all.
enjoyed it. Yeah, thank
Please
you.
stop by. Please stop by. I really mean it. Thanks, y'all. Bye.